Hi, this is Kate Montana, and you are.
Robin Duda.
And we are the Radically Real Girls.
I would
uh,
say.
I would say it's been a while since we've done this, Robin.
And it's really time to deepen into what that really means to get radically real. Wow.
All right, so this whole thing kicked off. We want to talk about the Holy Trinity, the unholy triad, and what keeps us from accessing being a whole grounded splendid human being with masculine and feminine and child energies richly embraced and enjoyed and coming together in the great marriage, what I called the Holy Trinity in my last week's Substack article. And so when I wrote about the Holy Trinity of the healthy coming together of masculine, feminine, and child at the top, I wanted to talk with Robin about what keeps us from what keeps us from manifesting that kind of wholeness and balance in our lives between the masculine, the feminine, and the inner child, inner children.
We all have to get to that space where we address that trauma drama triangle that Kaplan talked about as a psychologist, but the rescuer, the victim, and the perpetrator.
Yeah.
And people call it all sorts of different things. In our community, it was called the unholy triangle. And that was termed by Haley, another practitioner here, that is just so incredible in her ability to see that within. And that's really, to me, where one has to go if they want to transform that victim pattern that usually the child in us takes on. Is we're either feeling victimized by a perpetrator, male, female, mom, dad, and then that victimization turns into being a rescuer, trying to fight and change what mom and dad are doing. Or if often you're in a highly dysfunctional family, you feel like you're the parent. So the child essence cannot thrive when the mother doesn't have self-love and the
Right.
father energy doesn't have self-love, and they're battling because of their wounds. That unholy triangle really gets imprinted deep in the tissue. And then we have the multidimensional ancestral discovery of the roles that your family has played out that you witnessed unconsciously, vibrationally imprinted by. And then we have, of course, have culture. So it is quite a journey first to recognize I am playing out being a victim. And
Yeah.
then I'm playing out being a perpetrator, or I'm playing out being a rescuer. And that's like the first step for people to get empowered is to first be able to even go, wow, here I am playing this out. And from where in me am I attached to those roles or strategies to relate with other people?
Yeah. Well, that's been my whole healing journey, is realizing there was so many child parts of me that had to vacate because I was raised in a very abusive situation. And my masculine was overpowering because I was raised in the 60s and 70s, and so feminism. And so my feminine was nowhere to be seen. I had no idea what feminine even meant, except frilly curls and Shirley Temple and lipstick and lace. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not interested in any of that. So there was such grotesque imbalance in my own inner masculine and feminine. And then the child part of me, the innocence, the delight, the wonder, the awe, the excitement, the genuine enthusiasm for, oh my God, we're going to the grocery store. It's like that. Yeah, that it's like, it's like your dog. Oh my God, hi, I haven't seen you in 5 minutes. That just wonderful exuberance for life was just gone out of me. And I didn't even know it, Robin. And so this journey working with you and reestablishing what is the healthy feminine and bringing her home, and what is a healthy masculine and bringing him, and so that they can engage at a level where one doesn't dominate the other, and it's just like, oh, and then the child can come home. So that's what started this whole conversation. And there's so many levels to this. The inverted, you went right straight to the psychology of it, of course. And yet there's the religious Father, Son, Holy Spirit, which
It
is supposedly
eliminated the earth, eliminated mother, eliminated the feminine principle, and replaced it with what they call the Holy Spirit, in my
yeah.
view.
Yeah. So, if we replace the mother, father, child triad with the Father, Son, and I suppose the Holy Ghost, or the Father and the Son and the where I don't know where you put the dudes on that, but it makes a lot more sense if it's an inverted triad, because it's like, well, how could three masculine entities possibly have anything to do with creation?
Well, and I think whether people have researched the Gnostic principles or they have gone deep into different metaphysical principles that have been in the pagan knowings, there's so much understanding of what actually creates balance in our life in nature. And the more we got away from nature's understanding of balance, the more we got twisted up in religious concepts or ideas or ideologies that disconnected us from that inner child that actually holds deep innocence in the name of an ideal or a principle of purity that eliminates the concept of Mother Earth, or a concept of purity that makes a father principle above and dominant. So all of these things have been culturally imprinted. And as you have written a lot, and I've discovered through my healing work, that was an intentional energetic. If I want to create a place to dominate other, I'm going to separate the masculine and feminine principle in a human, in a body, so that the child in us and in nature cannot be held in the yin and the yang and nature's balance and thrive,
Yeah.
because we have to have both for wholeness, inside and outside. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that, you can't have the same gender of two beautiful parents if they have two men or two women raising a child. It doesn't mean you can't have that holy trinity of
Right.
masculine, feminine principle with a child. We're not talking gender, right? We're talking the principle of love in the feminine, which yields and opens and respects and loves her body
And receives.
and allows for a child's nonverbals to come into her body and respond. The classic scenarios that you described is we thought in the 60s and 70s, 80s, is being feminine was a role. And I think the wounding for
Yeah.
so many women, well, if I have equal power, that means, of course, I'm going to polarize in my male to have it,
Yeah.
masculinated feminines. And this conversation has been had many times. We're not new in this. But really, what was the deep suppression that had to happen in a woman that wanted power in a man's world? What had to get deeply suppressed in her self-love and her honoring of herself? And to me, there's a unveiling of that now
Yeah.
because of this great spiritual awakening we're all experiencing with the crumbling of dominance, or crumbling of lies, one could say.
Well, the only thing that had to be suppressed in the feminine was the feminine. The receptivity, the softness, the gentility, the cooperation, the desire to bring people together, to not have to dominate. And it's just extraordinary to me. The more you see, the more you see. And then the poor men are over here getting blamed for everything because they've been, they're the epitome of patriarchy, and it's all about dominance, power over. So you get this vicious triad where mother is victim, woman is victim, man is the perpetrator tyrant, and then the poor child at the bottom is either also a victim or has to take the role of the rescuer. I mean, how many times the only thing I didn't do to rescue my first marriage was have a kid, and that was part of the conversation. John and I were going south, and so the conversation came up, well, should we have a child? Like that poor baby is going to somehow knit things together. And that's
Oh, what a very powerful realization that you had then, which obviously was not true for you.
yeah.
No baby was going to knit anything together if
No,
if there wasn't a commitment in the individuals.
in the
And
relationship. So we get it's so strange. It's like the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. It's like, well, okay, who's the victim there? Well, Jesus on a cross, that's kind of a victim. And so we've got the father tyrant still, and then poor Jesus on a cross, and then the Holy Spirit is supposed to imbue us with
Well,
some.
one has, there's so many philosophies about what the Holy Spirit is, and
I
I'm not an expertise there in terms of what the actual research is. So I'd much rather speak about what I've learned about how we play all three parts
Yep.
in our inner world.
Yeah.
And until we get to the core cause of that, we can't bring the feminine principle into self-love.
Yep.
We can't bring the masculine principle back to his rightness in a woman's body. That what is the masculine correct frequency of incredible sustaining focus and clarity of protection. You know, we if we can't respect the masculine deep in our own bodies and deep in the realms of our connection to source, we won't be able to bring that light and that expression out. And meanwhile, the feminine, if she doesn't feel safe to open because the masculine is caught in the perpetration identity or in the victim identity, where
Yeah.
the masculine's little boy is like, you don't see me, and I've got to rescue women in order to be loved by them.
Yeah.
If the male is in rescuer position, he's not in self-love. If the feminine is in rescuing position, she's enabling. If
Yeah.
the child inside believes that she has to transmute and heal her mom and dad, which most of us felt, um, or run from them, then we don't have access to what I call the grounded self-love frequency that goes beyond our imprint of this life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as you know, I focus on helping people get the mother frequency of earth, the father principle from the source, and then to alchemically unify that so the heart of the beloved little ones can spring out. And some call the inner Christ actually the inner child, the holy child. I mean,
Yeah.
there's been so many ways people are talking about this archetypically.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
have watched you, Cate, oh my gosh, come from a workaholic to, always being in physical pain and claiming the parts of you that have been in perpetration against yourself. And they weren't just masculine, they were also feminine,
Yeah.
and getting your inner child to a place where she could actually express freely without inner consequences, without that judging thought form, without that, depression coming in because you're suppressing your emotional truth. And
About the constant whip at my back to do, go, go.
oh
Or,
my gosh.
oh
Oh
my
my
God.
gosh.
I mean, I mean, I've gotten to the point where I'm having to reassess everything that I do in life because having finally come to the recognition of that dominant patriarchal whip in hand masculine, so out of balance, so distorted from what the masculine is, which is protection and structure and the linear and support, and it's just like all these wonderful attributes into this goad. And how could my feminine ever show up? And forget about the kid. And I feel like a totally different human being finally getting that perpetrator masculine out of my energy field and out of my body. And
Well,
it's
I want to actually reframe that for you
please do.
because this is to me what's really up on in the inner world of most of my clients, myself, my husband, the folks that are showing up here. I do a lot of deep intensive work, as you know.
I
What
do.
we're realizing is the masculine's wounding is deep insecurity and unworthiness, that he is lovable,
Yeah.
and he's not able to accept that he deserves love. He has to earn it.
Right?
And then the punishment reward system that's been set up in culture and education, he is in this, and women too, but I'm talking about the male side of women as well.
Yeah.
The masculine energy has to come out of taking action from duty, from lineage obligation,
Yeah.
and has to find his own joy of giving through love of self and then other.
Yeah.
And if you have self-hatred, which most of us have, self-judgment that has led to self-hatred, or
Yeah.
if we've had people perpetrate against us as children, we've consumed, literally consumed that that abuser's hatred of himself into us, of herself into our skin, into our subconscious.
Yeah.
And so the self-hatred is what's driving perpetration. I'm not going to get, as a masculine, my needs met. So the only way I'm going to get them met is take
Right.
or manipulate or to
Right.
control.
Yeah.
And deep, deep down is the terror of, if I don't control, I will cease to exist. I will not be loved. I will absolutely not have anything because I can't trust that I'm lovable enough to receive in nature's pathways and in this synchronistic, spontaneous way of nature that knows how to flow with the frequency of self-love
And
and connection.
I'm going to disappoint my woman who
Oh,
has all these equally skewed expectations about him.
yeah. And for me, the masculine right now in all of us is exposing. I mean, if you look at all the stuff that people are shocked by, what kind of perpetrating masculine energies do we all just go, yuck, we hate this. It's the warring male that wants to dominate control with his energy and power, the manipulative male that deceives and lies. And it's all at the same core. I'm not connected to love for myself. I don't trust life. I have to control life. And then it goes back to the mind over matter principles that were, in high regard forever. Mind over matter is our manifestation motto. That is not where real manifestation comes from. It's
Oh
the
God.
it's the
Yeah.
alchemical process, right? Of
Of the
male,
whole
female,
guacamole
the
of
whole
all of it.
guacamole. So we've had a lot of undoing of programming and belief structures that are personally have to happen. But I have so much compassion for men right now, especially white men,
Mhm.
that all men, but I work with all kinds of cultures and races of folks, but there is a cultural shaming that is so intense where the lack of real understanding of how to be safe and vulnerable is really needing to be in conversations with men's work right now and couples work. Yeah.
How can men possibly be vulnerable when that's the woman's job? You're supposed to be, because vulnerability has been tarred with the brush of weakness.
Hmm.
And all things feminine is how can the masculine trust life when life, if you will, is really represented actually by Mother Nature, the feminine, and all of that has been dismissed, and then either that or plundered as a resource, dominated, controlled. So why would a man trust the woman, trust life? And so he's left with nothing but force.
And once we understand that that was an intentional mind control, an intentional division,
Yep.
so that the masculine would disconnect from his own loving nature, and then he could be hijacked. And the
Yep.
feminine was disconnected from her trust that she can be safe in her
Yep.
own body by speaking her truth, and on and on and on ancestrally.
Yep.
But to me, this is the time of the great undoing. I feel we have an opportunity, Cate, in our lives
It,
to see
yeah.
it undone.
It's not even an opportunity, it's a necessity. It's like if we don't go through that door and into if we don't create, if we don't come together in our own being and start to balance out these archetypal energies, if you will, and understand what they really are. And I've written a whole book about sexual mind control and the twisting of the genders and of the poor masculine, the poor feminine, and so, and I'm gonna put notes at the bottom of this whole thing, and people can research and go to that if they want. But so back to where does the child come into all of this?
Well, I think that's such a gorgeous opportunity for us to ask that internally.
Uh-huh.
Like each one of us, and if you're listening right now, to ask, was my child tasked in my own psyche with trying to heal mom and dad? Did I align with my father's strength or my father's energies because I felt safer with him or he had more power? Or did I feel safer with my mom or did she have the power in the family? The inner child gets to, in each of us, discern how they're going to navigate in that family system, how to get safe, how to cope,
Yeah.
how to navigate the either antithesis of where they see injustice by trying to save, rescue, or protect. Or did they come in and align with victimhood because they somehow got more energy that way? Do they align more with getting mom to rescue them or father to rescue them? So the child will play out all the roles as they grow. And then they'll have their own discernment as an infinite being. Am I going to align with any of it? And
Yeah.
most of us align unconsciously. So you'll have the firstborn that says, "Well, I'm going to have power like my mom, or I'll have power like my dad." Or they rebel and they go, "I'm never going to be like my mother. I'm never going to be like my father." Right.
That was me. I'll never be like my mom.
Right.
And I'm
So,
not going to be an asshole like my violent alcoholic stepfather. So, whatever.
well, and anytime we're rebelling through judgment and wounding, we're not in choice. We're not in the co-creative power of saying, "Who am I?" And if I'm not coming from the reaction to my wound, if I'm not coming by pushing away, making choices by pushing everything away, I'm
Yeah. I'm not
actually,
going to be like her and I'm not going to be like him. Well, where does that leave me? What?
yeah.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
has to, as the inner child grows and heals, if it does, the person gets to choose, am I going to heal my inner child, or am I going to stay in reaction to how I was raised? And when most of us marry and we become and act like parts of our family members. Most of us that are now at this age, we recognize, ooh, those early marriages, if you've had more than one, or that early time of my marriage, I was still responding to my husband as my perpetrator, or I was still manipulating, or I was projecting onto my whole family
Yeah.
my wounds into my current partnership. So, there's a ton of psychology written about that. But when we look at multidimensional healing, and that's what I wanted to speak into, really going into the child work is the doorway into the multidimensional. So let's say you realize, oh, my job in my family was to rescue, because that was my pattern as I uncovered it. Where in me do I believe that's my life path in many lifetimes? Is that a role? Is that an identity?
Yeah.
And what need was it trying to meet? And so when you finally have compassion for the child inside that didn't get its personal needs met and thought it could get safe by hiding dad's liquor, or get safe by taking care of mother, or get safe by lying about how you were really doing so you didn't cause a problem in the family, or you got safe by achieving straight A's because then they wouldn't be mad at you. Whatever the strategy was, when an inner child part recognizes, I can't get safe by doing any of that anymore, you start to literally transmute the impulse to either perpetrate, to stay as a manipulative victim and blame everybody, or to rescue, because all of those energies live within the inner child. They live in our body. But yet, when we come to the planet, our child is innocent. Our child is pure. Our child is curious. And they are driven by wanting safety and love and full expression of their potential. That's the spiritual, eternal soul instinct.
Yeah.
And yet, the context they incarnate with then starts to shape and sculpt them into experimenting with all these strategies. Most of them don't work.
Yeah. It's so funny. One of the things that early on in my work with you that I had to really grasp was parts. My feminine, my masculine, my child. And I mean, I've got a master's degree in psychology, so this wasn't any, strange concept to me whatsoever. But there was a very masculine, linear, show me attitude, like, well, okay, and then I'm a spiritual person and I write about being multidimensional, but I use the word and I think I know what it means, but what is it in me? And when I started actually working and understand and feeling that feminine in me that was just like, I can't be seen because I don't matter. And then feeling,
Mm,
accessing the energetic of parts of different masculine parts. The masculine part that had been tortured into being a soldier, the masculine part that had been tortured in a slave who became subservient like the woman who became the dominant, all these different energies. And I was like, oh my God. And then there was my children, the child parts of me is like the child that felt this way or felt that way or ran away or was catatonic in terror. And I
yeah.
felt all of those different aspects and it was all me. And it was like finally the light bulb went on and went, oh my God, that's my multidimensional nature. And, and then of course, you've seen me, get in touch with Syrian parts and reticulan parts and whatever parts. And it's like, oh my God, that's my multidimensional nature. And it's all here now, trying to come into sane, healthy balance.
And this is what is so exciting about being embodied right now. I love how you just described that. The inner child, when it's in its body, fully present, can tell you in the tissue right away, that feels like love, that does not. So, and I know there's quantum physics around this. I know there's biological research around this. When the love frequency hits the cells open and vibrate. When toxic energy, just like the emoto work, it comes into water, the tissue starts to lose its geometry, the cells that get constrains, and the geometry of energetic flow gets distorted. So the child actually, the inner child and our body, and I love this, is the greatest biofeedback system for the multidimensional. And after my near death experience, I had to come to terms with spirit, you actually don't know everything.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
are missing out because my spirit and soul was trained to do different cultural experiences and had different ideals from different time spaces. To not always listen to the earth body, it had an agenda for the realm. It came with an agenda. And that agenda was experienced by the body as stress and not love.
Yeah.
And one
So
of the biggest agendas was rescuing. And that had to heal in my spirit for my body to have a voice. And my body's voice now is my doorway to my inner child's freedom.
so was a lot of that spiritual aspect of your multidimensional nature critical of the physical and dismissive of it?
Oh, completely. I was very aligned with a perception that Christ energy sacrifices the tissue for the good of all. I had a very high powered masculine light energy, angelic, that wanted to heal everything, clean up this mess, come into this prison planet, straighten this out. And I didn't know that that was driving me. It took,
That's one of the things that you and I have a similar baton that we can pass back and forth. Yeah.
yeah. And if anyone's listening to your podcast that identifies as a light worker, that's a lot of the multidimensional training of light workers. And yet, what everyone's sharing about, any podcast that I pop onto that's connected to, channeling or spiritual messages, you got to get in your body or you're not going to be able to transition. And what is this big transitioning? To me, it's the masculine healing his self hatred and coming into self forgiveness and self love. It's the feminine coming into deep forgiveness and self love and removing the blame and the resentment in the tissue of our system. And that balance coming together of self forgiveness and then the inner child's true nature comes out of the tissue, out of the earthy parts of ourselves. And there's our authentic self that's not conditioned, not controlled, not always waiting and wondering if I'm going to get shamed or punished. And that authenticity is what we're birthing right now as a human cult, as I would say, human becomings. I know that's not original, but it's so real for me. The divine human, the real human nature. And it's got a terrible rap, human nature, because in my view, it's been interfered with concepts, ideas, and spiritual manipulation that
Yeah.
doesn't belong to humans.
No, no.
Ah, that was a lot.
So, getting into the whole thing about the body has been dissed by religion. It's the low place, it's the sinful place, it's the, God good and body bad. So that dismissal of all things physical, and then to discover, which I did much to my shock after 40 years of meditation and getting out of my body, was like, this is the power place. This is where it all comes together. This is where I have my power, and that I can create from the whole of me, the masculine, the feminine, the multidimensional nature of my being. And so this body tells me everything. And but it's been very confusing in this, in the to sort out, well, is this my feminine? Is my masculine talking to me now? Is it, what child is this? How old was I when this happened? And so there's all these different, when I've gotten more sensitive and sensitized and more grounded in my body and stopped drinking so I could actually feel something, because drinking was my major way of anesthetizing so I didn't feel squat.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, there was a certain time frame where it was just like, wow, this is confusing. And it has sorted itself out. But I have to just say, the body is the most amazing gift, of the most amazing communicator of what's real. And then to be able to sort that out. So, can you go a little bit into how we start sorting this out?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges around the phrases "my body will always tell the truth"
Yeah.
is that if you're listening to a part of the body that was conditioned to be in PTSD, for example, your body will tell you, "I'm in sheer terror when I hear that loud noise." So does that mean I avoid loud noises? The issue here is when you hear your body responding, how do you be with that in such pure love and connection that you undo the original cause of that state of terror or belief structure? Both. So most of us have learned, gosh, I hate those loud noises. I'm going to avoid the loud noises. My work has resulted in recognizing that we have to lean into the fire. We have to lean into the body's triggers, but we have to do that through what trauma work is calling titration.
Uh-huh.
If you have a ton of body sensations and you cannot titrate into a present time connection to safety, it's very difficult to explore. When I heard that loud noise, I was 4 and it was my father with a paddle or a belt. And I told myself, I can never be vulnerable again. So there's belief systems in our bodies that are vibrating with a moment of trauma that will expose themselves as now current time false, but you won't even know you're still believing them if you can't go into the trigger. If you
Right.
can't go into your body having a reaction, having a moment of terror, having a moment of joy, you can't even find out, am I in an addiction response or am I in choice? So part of the biggest challenge that I think a lot of us are in is having enough witnessing, love support in relationship where I can have a trigger, not go into a coping strategy of not feeling that or getting away from the trigger
Mhm.
or shutting somebody down that's triggering us.
Yeah, or
And
avoiding them.
right. And then going into our body sensations to explore what's really happening. What truth does my body actually want to tell me that isn't the first layer? And if you're not embodied, you're never going to get beyond the trigger. You're going to stay in high anxiety. You're going to stay out of your body trying to get away. You're going to try to control the environment. Like, I watched my dad constantly try to control all of us kids as a minister. whenever we made sound and triggered his self-esteem that we were bad kids at church.
Right.
So, no, he would go into fear and terror without knowing that's what it was, then move into the behavior of control because he was actually in fear and terror, traumatizing all of us kids to end up hating church.
Yeah.
So I didn't get underneath that
Yeah.
until much later in life that, oh, I've hated everything spiritual until I had a near death experience. And then I realized, oh, love is everywhere. It isn't just with Christ, right? It's everywhere.
And I'm not gonna die and get crucified if I go into love.
Exactly. And wow, so much twists and confusions around being abused and harmed. So not everybody has to have a tragic childhood to have triggers. It's so
No.
important to recognize how easily we're threatened out of our safety if we believe the thoughts that other people want us to believe that are anchored in you're not safe on this planet. You're not safe unless you take a ton of meds, or you're not safe unless you fill in the blank.
And just
Our
watch the
body
night
actually knows how to get safe.
Yeah, just watch the nightly news and you're guaranteed to pick up that program that you're not safe. Yeah.
And
So
that you're powerless to create your grounding and safety.
yeah. No, I mean, I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier, that one of the ways that's safe to titrate to go in and feel the emotions and search for, well, what was this trigger and why am I feeling like this? Why do I want to punch that person or run away from them? Um, how do I develop that steadfast, kind of a governing center perspective where I'm me and I'm solid and secure in my body here, present time, right now. I know I'm here. I'm really fully present now, and okay, now I'm going to go into this child part or this thing that I'm feeling.
Well, I think those are asking that question is assuming that people have an awareness first that they're not in present time. So the first thing is you've got to go, wow, am I having a reaction in this moment that actually isn't about this moment? And
Yeah,
Peter Levine's talked about this. This is
because if I'm being triggered, I'm not present. I'm 4,
not
I'm 3, I'm 12.
not necessarily,
Yeah?
but this is why fear has gotten a really bad rap. So you're saying something that's making me want to go a little different
Yeah,
path.
go, go, go.
Okay. We have gotten in spiritual new age communities, which I don't find myself drawn to much anymore because I'm all about embodying what works in a practical way
Yeah,
around all this multidimensionality.
yeah,
I have really come to respect the gift of fear, fear as a messenger, as a friend to show me where my edge of expansion is. I am naturally going to be afraid of the unknown because my system has been wired to feel safe in certain states of comfort and familiarity.
sure.
Fear is actually disguised excitement unless it is anchored in a past experience. And I have learned to move through fear really quick, and
Yeah,
it usually moves like that. And I love it when it does because I'm almost always shown this is your next step of excitement. You're expanding out of this one arena of your life, and you're coming into this next step of expression or creation. And then there's the fear that's really appropriate when you meet somebody that has an intention to harm.
or a rattlesnake is in front of you as you're on the hiking trail.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that the fear needs to disable you or stop you. Well, the fight flight mechanism can be healed actually through love. And it is neurological and it is physiological and it is spiritual. But what I have found is if there is a fight flight response, I can breathe, find out quickly, ooh, is that present time? Is that something I need to go look at later and tuck away in my bag to go explore? Or do I need to respond right now that someone is being inappropriate and have
Yeah,
a boundary?
yeah.
And I've gotten good at it so that I can pretty much tell the difference. But if you don't love fear and you do anything you can to avoid fear, you
Mhm.
won't ever be able to get in your body and titrate back and forth,
Or pain.
or pain. And that, well, those are the biggies. If you don't love your anger, then the energies that want to manipulate us take our anger and channel it into hatred and blame.
Do I have to love it? Can I just accept my anger and not judge it?
I say love it. And the reason I do is because it's a compassionate response to your inner children.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah. I'm so angry that daddy just spanked me. That was a violation. If I let the anger move, I end up having this will comes back to me. My own will to take action with love is anchored in to my knowing that I can protect myself through my voice. I have agency. I can run away from somebody. I can say no. I can say yes. And if anger is not honored and loved, you don't have access to just personal boundaries. And
Oh yeah.
anger has gotten such a bad rap because it's been used to channel our passion into harm. That
Yeah.
is not the purpose of anger.
Yeah.
And to me, I've done so much deconditioning of what the emotional body has been called, what has been we've been told about it. Um, and I've become absolutely thrilled with the power of the emotional body in the human realm to tell the truth for the moment. And
Mhm.
then the deepening of our own self-wisdom comes when we love whatever it is that's happening. And then we get more wisdom. Oh, that's
Yeah.
that anger was really because I did not say no in that moment, or
Yeah.
I didn't tell my dad how I really felt. And I can do that now. And then I don't need to repeat the same drama with somebody else to become a victim to somebody else's anger and control behavior because I'm in my own saying no.
Yeah.
Going back to the victim victimizer rescue pattern.
Yeah, and of course, what screws up the kids so much is when mommy is really, really furious and she has a smile on her face and she's going, "No, you shouldn't do that, dear," or "No, it's okay. I'm not feeling anything." It's like I'm not feeling it, and the kids getting this mixed message of whatever the facial expression is versus what's really going on in there because
Or
it's
what
not
I've seen
children.
even more, what I've seen with my husband is his father was, you know, out of the war, changed man, World War II,
Yeah,
and was so violent with his anger.
yeah,
So my husband then never could accept his own anger.
yeah,
And, so many, my brothers, I mean, anger only means violence and control
mm,
and
yeah.
impatience.
It
So
doesn't.
then we shut it down and we can't heal it.
Yeah,
There's just so many waves of how people misunderstand the gift of anger as just a clean fire energy that can move through us. And if we make it about what's happening on the outside consistently, then we've given our power away. I'm angry because of all of you.
yeah, yeah,
Instead of honoring, our emotional body is trying to talk to us.
yeah, yeah. Can we get back to the victim, the unholy triad?
Sure.
And I'm at this point, I'm actually not too sure what to ask about it. I mean, we've been going through the field of what doesn't work,
Yeah.
where the imbalances lie, where the triggers lie based in early childhood programming or other life experiences, all these multidimensional influences. And so moving through this I don't know, this imbalance and not even knowing we're imbalanced because, the trick, as you say, is to become aware that you're not present and that you really are operating, that I am operating from a program in me. Like there's a person who just triggers the hell out of me, and I must have spent half an hour sitting here on the deck, putting her in the chair across from me and conversing with her, but there was so much anger and irritation with her that it was just like, I know there's something underneath this. And
Mhm.
what is it? And and I finally, when I got to it, it was a whole childhood program about not being safe. And that person posed an existential threat to my very existence. And so,
Well, only because you were programmed to be obedient with other children, or else they'll die or you would die. And when people are in high crisis situations, they stay controlled because of the terror of pain, harm, and torture or death. And without loving your anger, Cate, you would never have gotten there. You would never have gotten there.
Yeah, well, I'm very in touch with my anger now, and I have no problems with it because yeah, because I'm not judging it anymore. It's clean.
Yeah. And
It
then the child then has a space to express that anger from that time and recognize now that those conditions are no longer in place. And so, just to answer a little bit of your question, how can you deal with this victim, victimizer, rescuer energy? You have to be able to get in your body. You have to be able to feel your feelings. You have to want to know yourself. And you have to want to bring the pure love that you truly are back to the parts that got programmed and twisted up into the belief I'm only safe when. I'm only going to get love when. I'm only going to survive when. And when you can look at that, you'll see, oh, I'm still in my victim. I'm still in my perpetrator controller. I'm still doing rescuer because it's anchored in, again, safety, trying to find safety, or trying to find love,
Mhm.
or trying to express my nature.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we need to start wrapping this up. Where would you like to go with this this conversation of this unholy what are they is it unholy triad or the what's
Well, what Haley calls it, Haley Welsh, she calls it the unholy triad
unholy triad,
or
right?
the unholy trinity.
Yeah.
And for me, the transformation came when I was willing to love the parts of me that were being mirrored by my father, by my husband, by my first husband, second husband. The perpetrator masculine in me had to surrender its guilt and shame, which was a non human energy, also, I found. It was an interdimensional force through religion that controlled emotional body movement,
Mhm.
suppression.
Yeah.
So when I moved shame and guilt out of my masculine and I met him in me, he then found his commitment to transformation through me as a being loving him. So my inner heart, my sacred heart, which is I call the governing center now, in present time was able to love my perpetrator self that was programmed, call him home out of the programming because he's not allowed to abuse anymore,
Yeah.
inside or outside.
Right.
And then I could forgive and bring that essence of masculine out of those programs. I had to do the same for my feminine. My mother was highly resentful, had cancer young, in my opinion, was young in her early 60s. A lot of resentment and bitterness, constantly feeling blame towards my dad.
Mhm.
So I had to find where is my mother in me and where am I ancestrally still doing that pattern of
Yeah.
manipulating and not being honest and not loving myself fully. So I had to find my feminine victim and perpetrator energies, pull them into self-love and self-forgiveness. And then of course the inner child work, which is more relevant to this life at one level, but it was the doorway to my multidimensional lives as well, which we could do another podcast on.
So do you think that really it's necessary before well, everybody's different, every situation is different, I understand that. But it's like until the masculine and feminine get untwisted, if you will, there's no place for the child to come home to that's safe.
Well, what I watch is most people try to get the child safe in like therapy or psychology work, which is thank God we have it.
Yeah.
And yet, what I watch is we don't go to the actual principles multidimensionally that are in our body of where
Mhm.
our feminine has been influenced. And if you don't understand multidimensionality and you're listening, you could think of it as like what I inherited as my feminine, what I believe being feminine was, what I believe about women, what I believe about mother, or the masculine, what I believe and vibrate about father, my own masculine. How do I feel safe with the masculine? So if you can't access those judgments and conditions and decondition that. A lot of people just try to operate from their child and they don't feel that security of that triangle you wrote about, which is the yin and the yang saying yes to the authentic in the now. And to me, the body is the alchemist, the alchemy. Our tissue is designed to be the alchemical, vibrant, radiant being of multidimensionality.
Yeah, yeah. It's the cauldron. It's the soup. It's where we
The
use
vessel,
the soup.
yeah. And when our male and female fall in love with each other again, and they trust each other again, and Tantra talks about this, the alchemical process of masculine, feminine in each energy center of our bodies, unifying, 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 cleanses toxins. Orgasmic or pleasure sensations that come from the male female union all the way up, activates the pineal, opens the crown. I mean, we do the two Taurus rainbow light work here. Opening our full being only can happen when the feminine says yes to the masculine, and the masculine says, yes, I adore you, feminine. And then there's that, oh, that juicy union. And what child inside outside doesn't go,
How
love
come?
it when mommy and daddy are in love,
Yeah,
like, oh, unless they're triangulated and they want to divide the parents because they don't feel safe.
yeah.
And that's a whole nother
That's a
con.
whole conversation, but it all starts with that imbalance because the masculine and feminine are complementary, but we have been programmed to see them as opposites and in conflict, one against the other. And so to get to this, really, what has helped is understanding the qualities of yin and yang and realize their energetic characteristics, their traits. And
Yeah.
everybody has masculine and feminine in them to a different degree, yin yang. It's not like there's no perfect yin person and a perfect yang person. It doesn't exist, except maybe in our heads. But then that's because that's what I've been feeling is getting that the child coming home and being safe. It's like, I mean, I have flashes, Robin, where flashes, long periods actually, where it's like I feel like I'm 12. I feel I know I sense 8. I am 8. It's like there's this I'm seeing the world through the 8-year-old eyes of freshness
Mm,
and
so beautiful.
complete there's no thoughts about it. I see a flower and I'm engaging the flower rather than, oh, that's a chrysanthemum. And if I use 10W40 on, if I use this kind of fertilizer on that, there's no yeah, it's
Well, we're
wonderful.
really we're really talking about integration,
Yeah.
soul retrieval, embodiment of all of your nature, and then whatever is present each moment can also be a surprise because your divinity then is responding authentically to each moment. And wow, to be able to live in the moment and not be trapped in the past or constantly projecting onto the future about how am I going to save. That is real freedom, Cate. And I know that's what you're all about. That's what I'm all about.
And then we move into creation of the new, and the child doesn't, every moment's new to the child, and it's just like, I don't know what's coming and I'm not afraid of it anymore. It's like, oh, I'm excited. It's
Well,
like,
when you have the love vibration of each aspect, at least the masculine is in love with himself, the feminine is in love with himself, they're in love with each other.
yeah,
Then there is this emanation that my nature is love. And then we create the next step through wholeness. And what would our world be like if we are creating through wholeness instead of compensating for all of our wounds? And I deeply believe and know in my system, that's what I'm here for. And to be a way shower for that as you are. And it's not that far in the future.
listen,
I
it's here now. It's
and
here
I
now.
feel a lot of young people already understand this that are coming in, and what's going to die is going to be painful to watch. But I don't think any of us that are here to guide and hope hold that essence that we can do it, we can do it. None of us thought it was going to be easy. We
Oh, I
need,
thought it was gonna be easy. I just was supposed to meditate and be in bliss, and then that was that.
you don't think it's easy now. True commitment isn't easy.
No, but
It
it
is,
sure as hell is worthwhile.
oh, and
Wouldn't miss this for anything. I'm
yeah,
so
what a time.
grateful. How many times I have said to myself in the last 3 years is like, "Nothing is like I thought it was. Oh my god." Yeah, I'm in a totally different reality. It's not the reality I thought I was gonna be in, but this is the reality I'm in, so, well, okay, this is new. It's
Yeah,
new.
it's new.
Oh my god. Robin, thank you for is there anything you wanna I think we've kinda, like, covered a pretty big circle on this one.
Well, I just want to acknowledge the courage it takes, Kate, to go on a healing journey, to uncover the denials and recognize that the outer world has been a reflection of the hidden parts of self.
Oh my god,
And
yes.
you really chose that, Kate, and I honor you for that, and that you trusted me and our team here. And I just want to say to anyone that is willing to take more responsibility to vibrate love and safety in your own system, that even if you don't know where to start, going into nature, hugging a tree, asking your inner child, what do you need to feel safe and loved today? That itself can be enough of a connection to start your journey. And of course, here in Santa Fe, we do a lot of beautiful things in community based on what does our authentic self want to create.
Yeah.
And I'm always available to respond to people that want to know about their own healing pathways that are possible with us in Santa Fe, New Mexico with sustainablelove.com.
Robin, thank you. This has been great.
Thank
And
you
when
so
you go
much.
out and sit on the ground in nature, leave your phone in the house. Give yourself
Absolutely.
10 minutes. Thank
Thank
you. Until
you.
next time, this has been Radically Real, and, yeah, until next time.
Until next time.
Aloha.
Aloha. Bye bye.